everybody. Welcome to the party with the nuts hang. It's just the right thing.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first edition of Bustin' Out right here on multiple platforms, because we do not discriminate on this show. We want to get you, all you people, joining in on the fun. I am one half of the Brunch Busters. You might know me. I am Bobby Munson. Joining me is the other half of the Brunch Busters. He is Mr. Chris Parrish, and we have a very special guest joining us for this very first edition. Right down below us, that man right there, he is Throwback 978. Good day, sir. How are you? And thank you for joining us.
Actually, it's going to be probably one of my only appearances for a while, because I'm supposed to be scheduled to go back to work by the end of next week. So it's sad, but I started my break with you being on with you guys on the other stuff, and now I'm here, and it's truly an honor being the first one on here. So I have a little bit of New England staple, a little bit of Dunkin's coffee with some pumpkin here. And then other than that, just hanging out. I feel underdressed with Parrish being in a football jersey, by the way.
And, he's looking good over there. I got to admit. Very sharp today, Parrish.
Hey, it's game day too. So I got to also rep my boys, got my Tyrann Mathieu jersey on. It's a big game. So
I really feel off, because it's like with having a baby and stuff, I'm not blaming Brody for it. It's just the fact that I get disoriented with certain days of the week now, because being up at 3 o'clock and doing feedings and then being up again another couple hours later, all the days are meshing in and time's meshing in because of lack of sleep. So.
Well, with that being said, I think we should maybe say good morning to some of the people that are joining us in the comments section there. I know a few of the things were thrown up, but hell yeah, you got that right, Carl. Turnbuckle Studios again, Carl, my man, and Joe over there doing Turnbuckle Talk on Tuesday nights. Check that out. We got Astrid in the chat there. Hello to all these wonderful gentlemen. Well, Astrid, good morning to you. We have also got Ed Fry's joining in on the conversation. Hey, folks, I'm throwing some shade at you again here, Parrish, when it comes to your Saints.
Well, I mean, I have to interject on that. Kind of expect Ed to do that, considering, we are Patriots fans.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, shade being thrown two directions at you this morning there, Chris.
I mean, it's fair. I mean, people hate winners. I guess we're undefeated so far. So
we got 6 titles.
Yeah, you got to have none with Mac Jones though.
Return. All I gotta say is it's his sophomore year. Let's go. Return of the Mac, man.
Well, this is a good segue. Speaking of titles, I think that could bring us to the very first topic of today on Bustin' Out. Talking about tag team titles. That right there. I mean, we don't want to cover up throwback too much there, but
no, we didn't think that one through yet. I'm gonna do that. Gonna throw that one out there.
We can cover we're gonna do that. That's okay. But that
my bad. I made it too big.
That is the brand new design for the WWE Tag Team Championship that you're seeing right there on the screen. That I'm sure we can probably leave it off there at this point in time. There we go, back to normal. But that is the new title design that was just dropped by the WWE. We talked about changing the WWE Championships over time. First and foremost, man, that looks like a championship title.
Nice.
Gorgeous.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know if that's the new one yet. That is what was on the internet. So who knows if that's a mock or anything yet. But we do know that the WWE is planning on changing the tag team titles design. That looks to be a very real version of what it could be. I know online, our good friend Carl also put out a leaked photo of what he thought could be that as well. So I just want to, before Astrid goes, just put everything in the corner. Yeah, but then it's not big enough. We're like Trump. Got to think huge. They're amazing. Good morning. But yeah, I mean, needless to say, I mean, the single fact that we are looking at potential new designs for these titles, tag titles being one of them. Obviously, I hear the women's and the main championship titles are being designed as well. What are we thinking on that, and how do we view these? That's what she said. I mean,
for me, I'm all for consolidating all the titles into one. The brand supremacy is dead. And that's why, like, I argue about the same argument. I will live on this hill. I will die on this hill. I still believe in my heart, as crazy it is, Roman is not the undisputed champion in WWE. I'm saying because NXT, as much as people say it's developmental, it's WWE product and it's a brand. To me, it makes perfect sense that Roman is not the true undisputed champion because you have an NXT title on SmackDown being defended. And that's going to be a regular thing. So it's, if you're having the North American Championship being defended on SmackDown on a regular basis and on NXT, wouldn't it make sense to have Roman, as much as he would kill Braun, literally say, that's the one title I don't have. I'm going to take it from you, Braun, and you have no choice. And literally that would make sense because you could, as much as the NXT title is separate, you could have Roman carry that. And then if they change the belts to make the other two look like a unified, it would be truly in that company a unified title. You know, kind of like in boxing, they do that.
Yeah, all good points for sure. But also, from what I understand too, is that the networks are calling for them to separate those United Championships that Roman is holding at this point, because there's complaints that there isn't equal amount of champion on Raw and SmackDown at this point, and now the company's looking at a way to try to get one of those belts off of Roman so that they can continue down in that path. We got shouted at Cloud joining us here this morning as well too. With hey Brunchbusters, what's for brunch this morning? I don't know. I already filled up on my brunch, and now I'm busting out of my belt right here on busting.
Well,
turkey sandwich.
I mean, Bobby. Busting makes us feel good, right? So that's
right.
kind of our MO. But I think just getting back to it, I can totally understand that viewpoint throwback with the NXT and the visual of the North American title being there as well. However, when Kevin Owens had the NXT championship, it came up and looked very I don't want to say transparent, but very much on the same level of the United States title with John Cena. So it doesn't, I think, necessarily translate always, because I think NXT is always going to be looked like it's the AHL to the NHL, right? It's always going to look like it's not an even playground as Raw and SmackDown. It's still going to be considered just that step down, even though it is the development. And even Triple H said in his interview with Ariel Helwani that NXT is developmental still. But I do think the fact we're seeing these championships perceived to be important, regardless of what platform they're on, just indicates how well WWE has been making these titles look as of late. Hasn't even been 2 months, and Triple H has made every single championship feel like they're meaningful and important.
Very much so. And I got to say, whether or not that is the official look of that title, I love the look of that title. If they're not looking at that and taking it serious in that direction for those tag belts, then they're on the wrong path, because that one right there, I'm on board with that. That is the championship belt.
Also, one last thing, anything that's draped in black and gold, they just look good. I'm just going to point that out.
You just had to go in that direction.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had to, right?
Wait a minute. If he's talking about that, my Bruins jersey looks pretty damn good too.
Hey, man.
I'll take that as a compliment.
I will put that up. I mean, hey, I like the look of the Boston Bruins do have a very nice, some very nice threads. I will definitely say that.
Good morning, John. Yeah, Bell Ball here as well too.
Hey, and make sure you're checking their show out too when you have a chance. Go over and make sure. Let us know where we can find your show, and we'll definitely throw it up on the chat there. But I also want to say, we just saw a picture of what could be a tag team title. What are we expecting if other titles are to be redesigned? And do we think either one or both of the Intercontinental and United States will be touched? Because I know they're newer designs, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were as well.
Honestly, in my personal opinion, I think that those should be the last two in contention, because they do have an identity of their very own right now. Mm-hmm. I think right now the focus needs to be on those belts with that WWE logo across the front of them and everything like that. I know that, you know, give all these belts a bit of a facelift before you even consider the Intercontinental and US titles. I don't think those should be the main focus. Get the World Championship, the Undisputed Championship, whatever they're going with that direction. The women's titles, those need a big overhaul as well too. They deserve something so much better to really separate themselves and really show that it means something.
I really honestly think that if they're going to shape up the Universal title, it's going to keep the same centerpiece, but it's going to do something completely different in style. They might go back to, like Paris says, the black and gold kind of stuff with a couple of diamonds and stuff, but it all depends on who's holding it at that time. A lot of people forget The Rock held the original version of that type of title, that design originally. And if the IC titles and the US titles are going to stay the way they are, they have a short life right now. I can tell you one title that is, I know you just alluded to a second ago, that hasn't had a look at yet, possibly for an upgrade, is the North American title, because that title has been the same low constant in NXT for a while, and they just updated the NXT title and the NXT women's title, and it makes perfect sense to update those and the North American title, because if you're going to have a champion that's going back and forth, the casual fan is going to pay attention to the Soul of Scope, because look at that performance he had over there on Friday night, and look what he did on NXT on Tuesday. So you're going to see a guy who people who are watching SmackDown will be like, I need to pay attention. I got to go to find out where he's on, and they'll go now to NXT to watch him when he's on there, because he'll be there Roman, and then when he's on SmackDown with his brothers and stuff, people are going to migrate over to NXT, which is going to be insane. I think really that title needs to be updated.
I want to point out a little bit of significance with this comment, because I think that is very true. I do think, despite the fact that we have obvious upgrades on the main title, I think we know we're going to get new championships for Roman. But yeah, not just the design standpoint, but re-evaluating the tag division and that in itself, as we saw very well on SmackDown, as we did see that tag team championship #1 contender match change, as we saw Imperium, Hit Row, and the Brutes, Brawling Brutes in that match. I thought was a great touch to help refresh the look of the tag team division. What do you think about that? Because I don't know, I'm excited now to see something new with the Usos instead of New Day, Street Profits, Alpha Academy,
And that's the best part about it. They're rebuilding this tag division right now. They're bringing in people that can fill those spots. They've done a good job of, making people care about maybe some of the teams that were placed together, like the Brawling Brutes, that at first everyone kind of maybe scoffed at a little bit. And now they're looking at it going, you know what, maybe I can get behind this, because after that amazing match that Sheamus had at Clash at the Castle,
that was awesome.
Oh, I know. And his status has risen. I mean, that's been helped out with the work that's happening with Gunther and Imperium, now battling with the Brawling Brutes, and putting them all on display along with Hit Row really added a new breath of fresh air to the tag division. And now we're getting that opportunity next week to see the Brawling Brutes take on the Usos in that tag title match. And I, for one, am very, very excited for this matchup coming up.
I'm going to give you a name that's the way they're setting things up in NXT, because I do cover NXT for Body Slam. And it seems like they're setting this up. You're going to get the Creeds within about the next 2 months coming up, because they have Pretty Deadly as their champions right now, as the unified champion since the UK brands dissolved. But I really think that since Pretty Deadly's holding it down in NXT, the Creeds have nowhere else to do, and they've run through the whole division down there. I want to see the Usos versus the Creeds. Now, that is a match. Like, that is an insane match where it's going to be extremely physical, especially, with Brutus and, his brother. It's just, oh, my God, I can't wait. the main thing about this tag division, they need to go back into the Hardys. As much as I liked that era of the Attitude Era, the tag division mainly was the one thing that was the basically holding up the singles division while they were building up stars, because you had basically teams like the Hardys and, you know, the freaking Dudley Boys. You also had an underrated team. You had Terry Funk and Mick Foley doing tag teams at that point. So, I mean, you had a lot of great things, but, you know, I think that eventually within the next couple of months, the Creeds are going to be going up.
And just good morning to the Canadian Wrestling Archive as well, too. And Papa Smokes, my man, joining us in the comments. And then Code apparently disagrees a little with you. He thinks the Creeds need way more time in NXT. I mean, I, for one, don't mind where the Creed brothers go myself personally, because I enjoy them. I want to see them mix it up with other teams. But Ed being a big NXT guy, I could see why he wants to keep them there just a little while longer.
I understand that. But the problem is that it's necessity. You know, what the main roster need as a necessity to keep building up those tag teams, because you have maybe 4 or 5 regular tag teams on each side of the coin on Raw and SmackDown. You need to even it out. You need another team to even it out, to have a rotating 3. And the Viking experience is in a resurgence, but you need that one team that is going to be like that workforce. And I think the Creeds are going to start out as their workhorse in those divisions, and it's just going to give them more and more elevation until they meet the Usos. But I want that match badly.
Yeah, I think eventually that is going to be a good match to have. I think with Ed's with comment, I know when I watch them, I see so much inexperience with the Creed still. And we do have to remember, with a lot of these guys in NXT, a lot of them started wrestling literally a year ago, if not sooner. And yeah, they've made a lot of progress. A lot of growth has been made. I still think they still have no clue who they are yet in the ring at times, because it's hard to find who you are in a ring. That can take you many years. A lot of wrestlers will definitely say something of similar value, but the one thing with the Creeds that I do like is that they're not doing anything more than what they need to do. And that in itself is making them look more valuable every single time they're in the ring. And I can say the same thing about JBBJ as well. But this is also why I think it might be just as important to bring a veteran tag team down to NXT instead of necessarily bringing somebody up from NXT. Because I see so much growth in not only what they're doing with the women, people like Natalya, Doudrop, and Nikki Cross went down, but you're also seeing like a guy like Braun Breaker succeed when guys like Dolph Ziggler is coming down, and then you had a Tommaso Ciampa at the time there as well. So I think there could be just as much value if you had, say, Otis and Gable going down to help work with the Creeds down in NXT for a bit, if you don't want them to be anywhere near the tag titles right now.
That's a good point. And I'll throw this one at you guys, because Triple H has alluded to the idea that there is still a lot of big surprises and returns on the books ready to go. There's going to be some that he says we're not even expecting or talking about at this time. Is there any tag teams out on the independent market, or anybody who was released from WWE during the last couple of years that come to mind for one of those positions that could add to that tag division?
Good Brothers.
That's it. I was thinking that if they come into WWE, you're going to have finally, hopefully, WWE's version of the Bullet Club, because Finn could go away from Judgment Day. There you go. You have AJ, the Good Brothers, and Finn finally underneath the same umbrella. It would be very awesome to see like these guys actually running Rickshaw against the Bloodline.
It would be cool to see Bullet Club versus the Bloodline. Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. But also, like, I still wouldn't even be surprised if Triple H goes outside the box and looks at maybe the Briscoes.
Wouldn't exactly where I was going. Yeah.
Man, I'm still alert. I'm inside both your heads right now.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly what I was thinking to myself. I'm like, does he go that direction? Because I mean, those guys they've done it in all other places and stuff like that. And at this point, he could let them come in and do their thing and have these great quality matches that they have. I really think it would be a great fit for the current tag division and something to really mix things up.
And have to see them at the ROH show that just passed. My God, that match was amazing with FTR. You know, it's just, I would love to see them do more in other places. I literally think that if you're going to do something, I think if you bring back, you know, Anderson and Gallows literally back, you have to bring back the Boneyard match. Now, I'm not talking about like bring it back to do it. Have a cinematic version where they're just lying there, disheveled, destroyed, and they go and look for AJ's coffin and stuff like that, and it's gone. And they realize AJ's out there, and they just go like crazy ensues. They go looking for AJ, and they show up on Raw one time, and then they just miss him by a minute. It just played off like that, and there you go. They meet up eventually. That's one way of bringing them back, because after that match during the cinematic, they disappeared. So you could just play it off like, you know, they've been sitting there the whole time rotting off. But they're the one team that makes perfect sense to me, that you bring them right in and, you know, just go straight out and just have fun. I mean, those guys are just insanely entertaining overall.
Definitely an interesting thought, but I mean, it makes me wonder, and we'll get to that comment in a minute, Parrish, sorry to interrupt, but it makes me wonder about, would they go there when they are now allowing themselves, especially the commentary teams, to start talking about things outside of WWE. As you know, Michael Cole even making reference on Friday Night SmackDown to a match that happened in PWG.
Yeah. And that's something too, like we might even see, because in the past we have seen Triple H be a lot more open to working relationships with other companies too. We saw, was it Evolve or where Theory came from, or was it Progress?
I
think it was
can't
Evolve.
remember, to be honest. So somebody in the chat will let us know.
Oh yeah, no, and speaking of our chat, like thank you so much for tuning into this very first edition of Bussin' Out. And if you by chance have other people that you want to share this out to, please let them come in, because the one thing we're going to do a lot in this is we're going to take a lot more topics from our chat and we'll talk about that. So be also very active in the chat, because we want to be active with you, because we know we wouldn't be able to do this stuff without you. So please feel free to be involved. But back to the point of working with everyone, Astrid coming in, Evolve. So
awesome.
Saying in my gut, I wish I did that more in high school. But no, and then I think that has a lot to do with it, because I know too, WWE worked a lot with Ring of Honor back in the kind of earlier 2000s. And we saw a lot of influx in the Ring of Honor talent in the WWE, and that kind of started with when like guys like CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, Seth Rollins, even a lot of them came into WWE from that background. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, especially, like just a great plethora of talent. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Triple H go back to that and try something else. Obviously not with Ring of Honor, but with, you know, a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, maybe with maybe even MLW.
Yeah. Hell, I'll even throw a promotion that has connections and ties right now intertwined into WWE. You have three major players currently in WWE that I can think of that were mainstays of this one. I would love to see them bring indie promotions like Chaotic Wrestling into the front fold, and have WWE work with them, because of the fact that they have Carmelo currently in Chaotic Wrestling representative, in past, you know, performer in there. Yeah, even though, you know, Mercedes V is not there, the Sasha Banks, that's one person, but their former Chaotic Wrestling champion is part of the New Day, and it's Kofi Kingston, you know, the former BC running back. But I literally think that if they bring smaller promotions in there, bring back the local ones that some of these talent came from to make a bigger impact. So like if you're doing like they used to do back in the day with the local shows, bring some of that local talent in and have them shine on screen. Even if it's just a squash match and let them carry a little bit of the match, at least you get their names on there. And that's how half of these people get their names. Like a good example, if Parrish, they were doing a show up near you guys and they asked Parrish to be a part of it. Parrish holds the match for a while. He's gonna get more names out there, more people noticed in him. And the thing about it is, it's the same way with Bad Blood. Bad Blood, congratulations on being on the 500 list for wrestlers, black wrestlers. It would be the same thing. It would give people more idea on that. It's the same thing they've done with Evolve, the same with ROH, the same thing they've done. Go further down. There's more talent on the lower half before you get up to the next card, like Double A. Just to get up to the main part, to get some rub on, it makes perfect sense. And plus, you have a connection in the New England area with Paul himself. He was born in Nashua, New Hampshire, so his family is still in this area. So I wouldn't be shocked that when he's around here, he's looking at talent to bring up into NXT or VFW or something like that, or OVW, and just bring them up there to get them out. If they're going to do it this way, go with the old course, but make it brand new. Make it make sense.
Well, and a lot of this would make sense too, working with these independent promotions, because Triple H many times has said about NXT branching out and becoming more of a global type of thing. We're going into different markets. If you work with these independent promoters and stuff like that, ones that can be trusted, you can utilize that talent for people that you could start to bring over to the NXT side. While at the same time, you can also use the name status of some of the people working within the NXT brand or within the WWE in general to make appearances at these shows to help get more eyes on those guys and also bring up some of these names kind of thing. Maybe the people haven't been exposed to said people on the card, but all of a sudden they hear that one of their favorite NXT performers is making an appearance. Then all of a sudden people are paying attention. They get to see some people that haven't been seen before, and it really benefits the WWE as a whole globally.
And it's not like they haven't done it before. The documentary with Undertaker shows with Glenn Jacobs, when he was in a developmental territory, they faced each other before he became Kane and stuff like that. So I mean, they could go that route and stuff like that. Bring Hayes to Chaotic, make him work with their champion, and then talk to Hunter about what he thinks that Chaotic can do for them. Do it with other promotions too. Hell, go to the promotion Chris is at times or wherever, and have them work with him, and then they'll ask how he was. It's a process, but it gets more talent in there. And especially since they're trying to create and make more of these people in NXT more palpable, it will bring more people, a groundswell of independent talent that they've had previously in the black and gold and it helps it out, making a lot more sense. I would love to see Hayes back in Lowell for at least one show. I would like to see, other people go in different spots like they did with Taker for at least like a main event special, couple of night shows or something like that.
Yeah.
The one company I wanted to talk about too that we've seen WWE and especially Triple H kind of branch out a lot too in terms of scouting for talent and whatnot is Insane Championship Wrestling, the one based out of Ireland. Not only did Drew McIntyre when he left Impact kind of start working there. When he left WWE, he went back there. That's also where we saw Gallus come from, which is, by the way, another shout out I'm going to throw out as another faction that could make its way up to the main roster sooner than later, if need be, would be Gallus. But we could see more influx to the branching out in Europe, especially with NXT Europe being a thing in WWE and coming in next year. We could very well see a good influx in European talent because right now it looks like European talent is kind of taking over, no pun intended, to what you can watch on Tuesdays on my Twitch. Yeah, you can also see that maybe that's a direction they could go as well. But kind of steering all the way back to who we think is Triple H's maybe people that he's bringing in. We just saw Braun Strowman back. Do we think there's a potential that he is looking and reaching out to more members of the Control Your Narrative group?
I think one name that's nobody's talking about that would make perfect sense is Eric Rowan. There was a leak out there. Someone was at the SmackDown show, and in between commercials, they ended up showing red lighting and a little music, and it was focused mainly on the entrance aspect of it, and then they just went away. So a lot of people are speculating on that, but I think perfect fit with Eric Rowan, it would make more sense.
And apparently that is becoming a regular thing. It wasn't just SmackDown, but also house shows have started to notice that they start to flicker with a red light back and forth, and then to the song White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane at the same time. So there's something that they're playing around with there to get people's attention. It should be interesting. Yeah, Eric Redbeard would be a good get over there. I know a lot of people think EC3, but if anyone's been paying attention, EC3 just made his way over to the NWA. So I don't know if that's going to be a mainstay for EC3 for a while or anything. But I'm just kind of glad that Control Your Narrative's not necessarily going strong anymore, because if anyone's tried to get through that, oh boy.
I'm going to throw a name out there that is very, very quiet, and I don't know his status right now. Jonathan Gresham would be a perfect fit, whether it was on the main roster or on NXT. Now, I know from what the report stated after Death by Dishonor, him and Tony had like a dismantling of a relationship like real quick after the whole Claudio thing, which I still stand by is one of the best moments in wrestling right now, other than the FTR and Briscoes. But I'm talking about singles. The thing it would make sense is having him come in NXT to give Breaker a really, as much as all these people internally, you need an external, a pure external person who has a champion pedigree to validate Breaker for the most part. Gresham would do that. Gresham is one of the major workhorses out there. If he is a free agent, I won't be shocked that he pops up and when they start traveling again. I pray to God, I'm being selfish. I hope they travel to Boston doing a takeover. I would literally buy tickets to that over Survivor Series. But I just honestly think that he would make a perfect fit on the main roster too, anyways.
Yeah. You know what? With Gresham, it's like I'm honestly a big fan of his work and stuff like that. I love his in-ring. I think that if you were going to bring him into the WWE fold, for me, it's got to be NXT, at least at the start of things. I think that bringing him in there and having him tear up and show what he does would help to kind of recreate the hype for Jonathan Gresham before bringing him into a main roster position with the company. I think that he can be there. He can have those great matches, those pure wrestling matches over in NXT that people start talking about. They get those good high ratings and everything from your Dave Meltzers and everybody like that. And then with that kind of hype, when it's time to bring him up, people will be ready for Jonathan Gresham on the main roster.
And the one name people are going to go straight to, and rightfully so, is Bray Wyatt.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The one thing I had too is I don't know about what you guys feel about Alpha Academy right now, but I feel that could be a platform to use with a lot more, say, traditional wrestlers, so to speak. So if there was any future plans with a Gable season or whatnot, or even Jonathan Gresham, I wouldn't be against these two men joining American Alpha Academy and maybe making that more of a stable than just a tag team. So if John Gresham was to sign in WWE and he's not going to go straight to NXT, I would love to see him tied with Chad Gable and that aspect, because it seems like the way he wrestles and performs would really be suited and be complemented by a Chad Gable and an Otis more than it would be necessarily wrestling guys at the NXT level, because I think if Jonathan Gresham had issues with how he was viewed with, and I'm dropping the title to Claudio, and maybe like it might not even be dropping the title to Claudio, but just how he was being used in the contract status. I have no idea. That's not my place to talk. But if you want to put him in a place to succeed, I think putting him with talent like him would make the best sense.
And the other thing also is that with the whole thing with Bray and stuff like that, there's rumors going around that they're going to be turning Alexa into the Wicked Alexa again. And if you had to bring all this stuff back and root it in there, you have the core right there between Braun, Alexa, which those two work really well together. If everybody remembers the mixed tag matches they used to do for the mixed tag challenge. And you have Bray and Rowan, and what they could do is something for Brody, not the one in there in my living room, but, in literally have something special as they come out and do something that has never been done before. Like having him, having like an honorary thing where he goes out. They did that in AEW, but they haven't done that in WWE. So you could do something where, they're having like a solid, quiet thing where they're just in their entrance, they stop for a second and all of a sudden they go all crazy insane. And another name that's interesting considering the fact that he's still on I think he's on Impact is, you have Eric from, it's hard to remember factions back in the day. But if you know who I'm talking about, he's literally running around there. There's so many people like you can bring in, like control your narrative. Like you said, Sarah Logan would be a perfect name to interject into that women's division, and basically go against Liv, saying that she basically dishonored, Ruby, and just have them go at it for that title. I know that's a stretch, but still, that would make perfect sense to me because there's history there. And, the whole thing like with Cora Jade and Roxy, you could have that on the main roster with Sarah Logan and, Liv Morgan. It's just, it all depends on how it goes. There's so many people. The list of it's ridiculous. Hell, I'll even throw one name out there is Deonna Purrazzo. She's still under contract with Impact and stuff like that. Impact could work with WWE. They did at the Rumble. I wouldn't be shocked if they go back into that bag anyways.
Yeah, so many different directions that the WWE could go, certainly. We've mentioned about some of these other companies and stuff too, guys. Maybe we could switch over to a new topic here, possibly. I got a couple of notes written down that I thought were quite interesting from the news this week, and one of them I wanted to talk about. This one's quite interesting. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat is preparing for a return to a wrestling ring for one last match. I know we're shaking our heads. I will say that Ricky the Dragon Steamboat definitely in much better shape than Ric Flair was heading into one last match, that's for sure. But at the same time, do we feel good about these guys coming back for these one last hurrahs and everything like that? Or, should we just leave this up to the young people at this point in time? Personally, I don't need this. I don't want this on a personal level. I don't think the people there at that age to really owe anything to the wrestling community to bother to lace up the boots one more time again in that ring.
Well, I'm going to say this flat out. As someone who I'm a 36-year-old man, been wrestling for 18 years. When you understand at some point the wrestling business, you have to be able to detach and let other people take it over. That is, as much as it's difficult to let it go, you have to, because you got to realize that you are not, this business doesn't owe you anything. You owe everything to this business. So you got to be able at some point to let it go. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, as much as I respect him, as much as I'm very appreciative of how much guys like him paved the way for people like me to do what I love to do, he also has to realize that this business is not about him anymore. And I know there's a personal challenge of, can I still do this? But we're seeing a lot of people nowadays at that age get to the opinion of, oh, maybe I can do one last match, and it just doesn't work out. We saw, as much as I love Shawn Michaels and I look up to him, that tag match at Saudi Arabia just wasn't good. It wasn't. We see Goldberg try to do it. We've seen Undertaker try to do it, and their performances just seem to diminish a little by little by little. Ric Flair by no means looked like he should have been back in the ring, and it was very hard to watch because he is one of the greatest, if not the greatest. That is definitely a topic for a different show of all time. The thing I'm worried the most about is not only his health, but whether or not he's going to devalue any part of his legacy, because more people that now watch him are going to see his name be attached to that performance, and sometimes that could erase previous performances from other people. I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but I wish sometimes these guys would just find other ventures of how they can help talent moving out, because this business needs more stars, not nostalgic stars.
Yeah, I agree.
All I'm going to say is this. The wrestler, Mickey Rourke, in that movie is the perfect fit for half of these people that want to come back. Like, I'll give Goldberg props. He's trying because of his son. And look at how that guy got his hand slapped by Bobby Lashley. It's over and done with. The one thing I'll point out that you didn't say his name, and we've talked about him a little bit earlier with all of that Triple H. He kept coming back and back and back, and his body got wear and tear and got injuries and stuff like that. A lot of people don't know. There is an article floating around in the internet that he was supposed to work WrestleMania 38. And that his opponent was supposed to be, Gabe Steelson. So it's good idea, when to not come back and not come back at all. And the one person before he came back was, like you said, Shawn Michaels. A lot of people think after that comment, Mark Calloway is going to come back, and he stated he's done. He's doing his own one-man show and stuff like that. But once that call comes in, never say never. But I literally think Steamboat should just keep doing the production stuff. Look at Rick as a cautionary tale and just walk away.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you guys more. I think it's kind of one of those things we're not looking forward to. So hopefully maybe it's just a rumor and it won't come true. But let's talk about people who are a little bit newer. Maybe the new school versus the old school. Let's go on this topic for a minute. Go over to our friends at Impact Wrestling and the announcement that Giselle Shaw, somebody that both Parrish and I are very familiar with, is going to be taking on Mickie James at Victory Road. Thoughts on this one? I mean, personally, I still view Mickie James, despite the fact that she's been in the business for so long, as not somebody who's, giving it one last hurrah, because she can still go. I mean, she is still young enough to go out there and give these great performances. And then I think the opportunity for Giselle Shaw is absolutely mind-boggling. It is great to see her get this opportunity to face a legend like Mickie James on a televised pay-per-view. Very much looking forward to this.
I think for a fact that with this match, Mickie, like Asher said, it might be her last rodeo going in around a lot of these promotions. And I think the last one she'll end up having is her last mainstay matches will be back in WWE. I think Mickie is going to go over Shaw, but I think it's going to be some shenanigans and stuff. It's going to be one of those situations where even if the winner wins, the loser wins kind of a mentality. It's going to be like both of them put on a clinic and everybody's like, that is just an amazing match.
I think, I do think like Mickie James, and you're going to get to know nothing out of me in terms of negativity. I think Mickie James potentially is the greatest female wrestler of all time. And people can really have their opinions. That's mine. I would love to see her finish her career, to be honest, wherever she wants to be. And I wouldn't be surprised if she goes back to WWE. I even heard rumors that her husband, Nick Aldis, could be looking at trying to go to WWE at some point. So I wouldn't be surprised if they make their way back, or Mickie makes her way back, but Nick makes his way to WWE. I think Mickie James' Hall of Fame is a lock. I think one day she's going to be in the Hall of Fame for WWE. But at the end of the day, what Mickie James is doing is the perfect example of what a veteran should be doing. and that is making other stars brighter in the future. So I think at some point we got to look at that aspect. So I don't know. Like I would love. Like I love it. Like I think Mickie James is just one of the greatest, and I think what she's doing, helping new people forward, I think is just absolutely phenomenal, and that is exactly what veterans should be doing on their way out.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of wanted to bring this subject off after talking about the Ricky Steamboat thing, is because Mickie James, while she can still go and isn't really at the the rapid age of a Ricky Steamboat or anything like that, like at least if her legacy is tied to doing this last rodeo and going out there and putting over the young talent and doing this kind of stuff, she'll be remembered as what she should be remembered as, one of the greatest to lace up the boots and get inside a professional wrestling ring.
Yeah, and I know, like I was saying, like I don't want to always go back to the nostalgic days. And that's well and good. I don't look at Mickie James as being nostalgic. I still look at her as being a wrestler. Just happens to be she is more of an older wrestler, because it's not like she was Trish or Lita. She didn't retire and come back per se like they did. She kind of just went elsewhere and did other things. So I can't really say like I look at Mickie James as the nostalgic eyes, even though she is somebody that we know from the 2004 era and like those years. Hell, we even know Randy Orton from those years. We know John Cena from those years. So I'm not saying they're nostalgic. They're just they're aged veterans at that point. So we got to be able to look at that and move forward to it.
Well, this is a true baby face running out there. Is there anyone?
Good morning to very young Brody joining us here as a special guest today, too.
Yeah, he was crying, so I had to go pick him up. But I figured, there's nothing wrong with having this beautiful face running anytime soon.
That's right. You know what? I think viewership just went through the roof as soon as Brody joined the screen. We might have to have him on more often.
Yeah, I know, right? It'd be fun.
Maybe when I update this to YouTube, I can say this is child friendly now.
Yes, you pretty much can say it's child friendly. Like, there's a joke running in my household that he will be meeting up with Parrish down the line in about 20 years.
Oh, he might be doing something with Son of Irish. I could be long gone by that time.
A bit of an age gap there, of course. But.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna do the Ric Flair career.
Your last rodeo might come sooner rather than later.
Yeah. The one thing I do want to talk about, if you don't mind, because I know like we're at the 50-minute mark here, Bus. Now I just want to say thank you to everyone who decided to pop in, throw comments, and just be involved with the first ever edition of Busting Out. We could not do this without you, and we definitely would like. I would like to take this time, and I know Bobby, you would probably agree. We also want to show some thanks to where we have been. By the way. Yeah. And if you're not following us, please go check out Zach over at Love Wrestling. But with that being said, with pro wrestling kind of the way it is right now, we were talking about title designs. We are talking about, veterans. What about the announcement just made that for the next Saudi show, we have a main event of Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns? I know this is a very controversial topic. Even Corey Grace said Logan Paul doesn't do controversial moments. He just lives a controversial life. He is definitely a polarizing figure, despite anything of what people said. I understand the perception of this is not a wrestler, but he's getting a world title shot. I think it's a great idea to not only bust out some viewership for the Saudi show, but also allow Roman Reigns to continue his reign without wrecking some really momentum that other superstars have. Say like a Kevin Owens, for example, who is starting to build. And if you put him to Roman Reigns and you don't have Kevin Owens winning, you bring him back, and that's something that they don't want to do. Whereas Logan Paul right now is very more acceptable to, have a match lose, and nobody's the wiser. It helps Roman but also doesn't stagnate anybody else. So what do you guys think about Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns at the next Saudi show?
I'll take the reins here for a minute, Reigns. Anyway, I am not against this like a lot of people are. I think they believe that this is going to ruin this run that Triple H is doing with the WWE and everything like that. I think, again, kind of piggybacking off what you're saying, Parrish, I see this as an opportunity, again, for them to continue the build of the other superstars to get to those kinds of levels that we're going to get those high-quality championship matches on pay-per-views. Well, at the same time, I feel this is an easy one. You're feeding someone who's inexperienced to a guy who says he's on God mode, and he is on God mode. So you send him out there. Logan Paul has a big name. It draws a lot of casual fans to the product at the same time. You put him out there. You have him maybe get a few of his things in, but have Roman Reigns dominate him. Have him physically dominate Logan Paul and just leave him lying. Big win for Roman Reigns. Make it look fairly easy for him. Yeah. You don't have to completely punk out Logan Paul entirely, but I think that this one should not be a full-on competitive bout where we believe in any way that Logan Paul has a chance of winning. I think Roman Reigns needs to go over big.
The thing about it, though, is that I'm going to quote a line from a famous comedian. Logan Paul, you're going to die. You're going to die twice. The outpour of people that I've talked to and literally have talked about this match, it's basically Tyson Fury in WWE, or the match with Brock and the other. Like I said, bad with names, but that match that they had in UFC, they brought back into WWE.
Yeah, but I mean, in the same argument,
these Saudi matches, it's always a money grab with these, and I understand it. Logan Paul and Bad Bunny and stuff like that, they did an amazing job training for some of these matches and stuff like that. That match with Miz was amazing. But Roman's a different animal, and it's just like you're not going to compare to it. They're not going to take the title off Roman until WrestleMania. They're not. And the one person that they could take it off, maybe the Rumble, is in his family. And we don't know if he's going to pop up anytime soon with movie commitments. So, I mean, it's the only way I could see Roman losing that title as of right now.
In the same argument again, too, like, again, like the Logan Paul thing, I wonder if people would have been as upset if it was Bad Bunny, because people have seemed very behind Bad Bunny as a competitive wrestler. They were all okay with the way Bad Bunny is presented as being competitive against other stars on the main roster, and yet so against Logan Paul because he is such a polarizing figure. They have used celebrity appearances in the past before in good ways and stuff like that, and I think that this can be done as, like, again, like you were saying, Parrish, protecting the other superstars, not to have somebody have to go out there and lose to Roman Reigns in Saudi Arabia. And, you save that up, save something bigger for Survivor Series, for the Royal Rumble, in the preparations towards WrestleMania. You mentioned in Throwback about The Rock coming in. I think a lot of people anticipate that this could be the case, and no better time for it than when they're in Hollywood. I still don't even believe if they bring The Rock in that's going to change the game in terms of having somebody beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, because The Rock has stated many times before, if that match were to happen, he's there to put Roman Reigns over, not the other way.
Yeah, I honestly think if Rock is planning to pop in, don't be surprised. He's number 30. He's in that John Cena spot at WrestleMania, at the Rumble this year coming up. It would make a perfect sense. You could have it play off as he's the number one contender. He won the Rumble. I know everybody hates the Batista spot right there, but that's the only way it would make sense for it and stuff, and go from there. By the way, bye guys.
Bye, Brody.
I mean, I do think if we're doing anything with Rock and Roman, I really am going to be the first one to say I really don't think it needs to be for the championship. I really don't, and I would be very okay with the ending. And here's my thing: if Rock and Roman were to be a championship match at WrestleMania, I would love to see Austin Theory walk out as champion at that point, because no one is expecting it, and I'm all for moments at WrestleMania. Now, with that being said, because I got to get that line in at some point, I really think if Cody is available for a Royal Rumble, he should be your guy to win. And I do think if he's not, Kevin Owens should be your guy to win. I do not think Rock needs this. And I think having a nostalgic act like Rock win a Rumble is the worst thing you can do when you're trying to create new stars to help go up against Roman Reigns in the future. I think you're making a great way of making Roman Reigns look like a megastar today. But this is the issue they've been having for the last 12 years, if not longer. Since Rock and Austin left, they have never had more than one megastar on their roster. And it's moments like this, times like this, that they've wasted by bringing nostalgic backs, winning moments like the Royal Rumble, and they can use that as platforms to help elevate other people. And I look no further than Drew McIntyre, and that as a perfect example.
Yeah, I'll even throw a name out there for the Rumble that I said should have won last year, and I stand by that. And I still think he's way overdue for a shot. He was number 3 when he debuted, so it makes perfect sense. This is the right time in the right spot to give us a Roman Reigns AJ Styles match. And if you're going to take one of those belts off of one of them, and Cody isn't available, this would be the perfect time to give us this version of AJ against this version of Roman, because we got a face Roman versus a freaking insanely heel AJ. Let them flip the script on this one, and let these guys show you why they are 100%. AJ is the best wrestler pound for pound in the last 20 years, in my opinion. And I literally think that, Roman is one of those major powerhouses. Let them relive that rivalry, bring that back up, how AJ kept winning the title over him, and prove to everybody that Roman can outbreak his past ghosts, and AJ is one of them. And it would make a big thing. It would give AJ that WrestleMania match that he needed, that he didn't get with COVID. That Boneyard match was supposed to be something that was going to be live, and it didn't happen. And now this would give AJ the main event at WrestleMania. He could put that in his feather in his cap. Even if he doesn't win the title, it would give AJ something to say, I would main event WrestleMania. There's not a lot of people that could say that.
No harm in AJ being used in that capacity at all. One thought I would have, because again, they want to protect Roman. They don't want Roman losing one of the belts, but at the same time, they want to separate the belts. So here's my thought. So if he's on God mode, the story that they can build here is Roman is going to defend one of those belts at the Royal Rumble in one-on-one competition. That's the one you have Roman continue to go over. He retains that title. But then the second belt, whichever belt they choose to do, Roman Reigns, you're defending it within the Royal Rumble match itself. You will go in there to defend that belt, and if somebody else wins the Royal Rumble, they will be crowned the new champion. You don't have Roman Reigns lose that streak of losing the belt in competitive action one-on-one in the ring. You have him get eliminated by his inevitable opponent at WrestleMania, who also won't win this thing, allowing those two to build up to a WrestleMania match. It could be The Rock in this case, where The Rock doesn't have to win the Rumble. He eliminates Roman Reigns, setting up that match at WrestleMania. And I believe that Cody, if he is available, is right for that number 30 surprise spot, comes in, wins that whole thing, and has a one-on-one match as the champion going into WrestleMania with even they can continue the thing with Seth Rollins. I don't think anyone would have a problem 1 year later if that story was to go down at WrestleMania in one-on-one competition.
Another name I want to throw out as a giant return for the Royal Rumble that I don't think we've really been talking about. We could see the return of Bray Wyatt in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
And how fitting would it be for the guy to end Roman Reigns' WWE Championship reign is the guy who ended up originally losing the championship to Roman Reigns. And that would be Bray Wyatt, the Fiend. I think that would be such a 360 of expectations, especially when we have the Codys, the Rocks, like you said, throwback, AJ Styles. You could have a multitude of different people, but the one that we're not expecting in that position could be Bray Wyatt, and I think that's very intriguing because, I mean, if the Fiend was to return, that would be a very dominating way to do it, wouldn't you say?
I'll throw a name that piggyback by you, and he's already back. You say the person that Roman got the title. A lot of people forgot Roman won that in a triple threat match, and one of those guys is back. Braun Strowman winning the Royal Rumble to set up those feuds, those battles that they had when like Braun was throwing freaking Roman in cars and stuff like that. That would be an amazing thing, especially this Braun. If they do that right, it would make perfect sense, and then you can lean into something different. But there's multiple options, and I honestly think it's time to take. It's going if they do split the titles from the unification, it is going to be the WWE title because they want to keep the Universal on him as long as possible.
Yeah, well, because be the one that he's had the longest, kind of thing, it would make the most sense. But yeah, I mean, it's been quite the run, and a lot of things. The best part about WWE right now is we're all excited enough, interested enough, and invested enough in what Triple H has got going on that we can have these conversations and keep talking about it. And nobody is bored at the moment. We know there's surprises on the horizon. We know there's great wrestling on the horizon, and a reason to keep tuning in to the weekly programming now for the first time in a long time.
I'll even throw something that we haven't talked about that was put out there on Twitter. And I think, Sean Ross Sapp put this in a tweet. Bianca Belair threw her name in as that one of those names that wants to face Mandy Rose for the NXT title. Can you see Bianca Belair winning the one title she does not have? One of the one titles she does not have. She doesn't have Money in the Bank in her career. She doesn't have the NXT title in her career, and it would be and the tag title she doesn't have. But it would be great to see her taking that belt off of Mandy and doing what Sola Sikoa is doing, and just eventually someone they build up in NXT as that, unbearable workforce like a Braun Breaker taking that title off of Bianca's and as she elevates that title to the casual fan, and that would make an awesome thing. Hell, I've been saying this since they did the 2K scrum that Alexa Bliss has said that she's also wanting to face Mandy for that title. There are alumni in NXT who have not won that title that want to. I'll even throw a name out there that would be perfect just because she's not on TV. She's rehabbing. Eventually, I would love to see Becky Lynch in NXT to get that one title out of those four women that has not held that title.
Very good. Strong point as well, too.
As much as this would be cool. I would not even consider Bianca Belair going to NXT as long as she's a Raw Women's Champion. I would not have that. Also, I think too right now, NXT's women's division is so good right now that I don't think it really needs a lot of main roster ring downs as much as people think. I think other divisions like a tag division, perhaps maybe even the odd maybe a feud with like a Joe Gacy, like stuff like that, like complementary pieces. That's what NXT could use right now. But Alba Fire right now, formerly known as Kaylee Ray, is absolutely killing it right now and is probably the most deserving person right now to be that person who could potentially take that women's title away from Mandy Rose. And I think it's eventual that Mandy Rose is going to lose that championship, and we see Toxic Attraction on a SmackDown over Raw moving forward, probably whenever that eventual draft does come, because it is still a thing that WWE is still planning to have a draft. And I think by the time we see the redesign of what the WWE, whether it's championship or universal, if they make one redesigned championship, then we have our actual first piece of significant information on whether or not that brand extension, as you said earlier, was dead, or if we're going to see two championships, thus indicating that a brand split and the roster are going to continue to be two instead of one. So I think that's very indicative there. But in terms of NXT right now, I do not think you need to put anybody in place of an Alba Fire or maybe eventual a Nikita Lyons or even Zoe Stark. Like, we have a lot of people in NXT right now on the women's side that deserve that opportunity. And we haven't even discussed potentially Ginny, who I think should be coming back sooner than we think. But I think right now the NXT women's division should be left alone.
I kind of agree with that and kind of don't. I think if it's NXT talent internally, they're going to put the belt on Tiffany Stratton. It's the only thing that would make sense after a lot of the names that they have. If not, perfect sense. Alba Fire would make perfect sense for me. I just honestly think that there's the idea of having Alexa and Bianca in NXT would be an amazing thing, because out of all the names that we've seen Mandy go through on the NXT brand, there hasn't been really one major name from the main roster that she's actually faced. And I'll throw another name on there that's not doing much other than being in that match for the number one contender spot at Extreme Rules. Sonya Deville, that feud was really good, and it would be an amazing thing to see them go after each other for that. And it's just, I think, as much as going against all these great talent, especially the final boss was one of them. I think having somebody from the main roster like Cora Jade faced against Natty to validate certain things. She says, put respect on her name. Give her a main roster talent to actually say, you can't deny it. I beat this person that you love. That's that's on the upper echelon, and you have to have respect in my name. So, I mean, it all depends.
And to go all the way back from a previous comment from Astrid, she would like Billie Kay to return. And I do think eventually we could even see the Iconics reappear in WWE. I know as it stands right now, the artist formerly known as Peyton Royce, I believe, is currently pregnant. So we might have to wait for that to be over. But I do think we can see Triple H bring that group back. And regardless of where they stand, I think and just to kind of tie this back to the NXT Women's Division, I think the one thing we need to realize with Triple H and his vision is anytime he was involved in anything, whether it was NXT or now, he's always put strong emphasis on the women and the developmental aspect of the women, making sure that, the stories make sense. The right person is in that position. I go back to, when Asuka was the champion, he did so much to make sure that her aura was protected. And I thought it was really nice and professional that they used her as one of the few examples of somebody that had to relinquish the title because of a situation of her moving up. Whereas you saw somebody like Rhea Ripley really benefit from being the one that really took out Shayna Baszler. And I think right now Mandy Rose is kind of entering that Shayna Baszler kind of dominance. And I do think eventually you're going to need somebody internal and not established to be the person that takes the title off. I think it's very key to the developmental aspect of the NXT Women's Division that the person who takes that title away from Mandy Rose is not somebody coming in. Because I think if you bring in that Becky or Bianca or whatever, you have to look at that either as a potential helping out Mandy, but then you also have to look at if Mandy's going back to the main roster in this new light, new wrestler kind of a thing, you're wasting a potential feud that could be on SmackDown and Raw moving forward now too, because people are like, well, I saw that in NXT. Why do I care about it on SmackDown or Raw? So I think they want to play safe on that future because I think they know that there's a lot of stuff there. Whereas, again, you got people like Alba Fire, Billy Stark, Tito Lyons. You said Tiffany Stratton. You have a plethora of options there, and I think that's a better suited thing. Hell, Cora Jade could very well be that right person. Roxana Perez, who is a very intriguing member as well. But I think right now you stay internal with who you have in NXT, and you don't put a main roster talent on the women's side over for that championship.
I mean, it's a good thing to talk about because it makes you see how things could happen in certain lights. You know, these are the things they say they want to do. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. If anything, with NXT, they need to have somebody that will help push the bridge into somebody else, and I think that's why a main roster person could do it. Now, the other thing about it is that the one match that has hindered a growth from down there, it was the AJ match. As much as that match was really good and, pardon the pun, none intended, phenomenal, Grayson Waller hasn't done much, and he hasn't done anything major significant since that AJ match. Natty Cora Jade, on the other hand, has done 2 championship programs with Mandy, and on top of that is going against, Roxy as a feud with that they're literally putting her head over, and they're trying to give Miko Sakamura as Cora Jade's next opponent. They're going to push Cora Jade in this form up there. It's just how quickly they do that. But you're right in some aspects, but I think they need somebody from the main roster to bridge, like they did with Ziggler, to whoever they deem is the next person. And I think doing it the way they did with Ziggler makes perfect sense in the women's division. And if you do something like Alexa winning the NXT title and you bring Toxic Attraction up, you can set that up to have Cora Jade go against Alexa and taking the belt off of Alexa to go back up like they did with Ziggler.
Bobby, I want to bring you back into this because I know you kind of went away and then you're back. What are your thoughts about this issue?
I kind of agree that, I'm kind of torn right now, just mostly because I'm not against bringing names over to the NXT side to elevate and everything like that. I think it does wonders. It's a wonderful aspect to go about. But in the Mandy Rose case, I think that it's kind of where, I think I agree with you, Parrish, about she's kind of at that point where does you give the Asuka treatment to have her come up to the main roster and have to relinquish the belt, making her look stronger to the main roster aspect and being able to come out and say, I already conquered everything over there. Now it's my time to come over here, come back and show you what I'm all about, everything, and setting up those feuds with some of the different women on that particular roster. Not to say let's not throw out the idea of Bianca coming down and doing an NXT women's match sometime down the road, or any of the names that you brought up there, throwback. I don't necessarily think it's time to do that in case of Mandy Rose, but maybe with the next NXT champion to make them look stronger, you could have matches set up with women from the main roster at some point, or someone from the main roster, to at least allow them to go over and make them look like a stronger champion. I don't think there's any need or any reason to have to make Mandy look stronger as the champion. I think they've done a strong enough showing of that already. I think it's her time to come up to the main roster and maybe just get the Asuka treatment and relinquish that belt back.
Right. I mean, in an instance, you guys are both right. It's just, for me, it makes more sense to have somebody from that, like they did with Ziggler, and bridge it over to somebody else. I mean, we have seen in the past Mandy versus Alexa. There's no way around that. They were both on the main roster at the same time. It's just this version of Mandy in NXT will go up with Toxic Attraction. It's just that it would make sense to have Alexa get that one belt she needs. Her career is solidified regardless, but I just think that's the one thing in her own mind she absolutely needs to, other than a Rumble win, to solidify her career. And saying that and putting that out there, sometimes Hunter listens to the talent, and if like they did with Kevin Owens going into a takeover, I won't be shocked that we see Alexa in the next coming months to say, hey, I want a shot at the NXT title. You can bring these guys up because they're ready, and I will give a couple of months of my work to NXT and hold that title until you think that, Cora Jade or Roxy or Nikita Lyons, someone up that Eric Pedigree or Tiffany Stratton is ready, and then get pushed up into the next spot to actually take it, and then you could bring me back up and stuff like that. As much as people are going to say that shouldn't be the case, it might be that way, because right now in NXT, Mandy's gone through most, other than Elbow Fire, but this version of Elbow Fire, She's gone through a lot of that roster already and stuff, and won against a lot of those people. So it's kind of hard to say, yeah, these people, this person can beat her. Well, she already beat them. So it's like you have to look at outside sources in order to create that monster, to slay that monster. And the only two people that I could think of would be Bianca, but you want to keep Bianca on Raw. And the other person is perfectly fitted for her, considering they face each other, would be Alexa.
I think that's a strong point, but I just feel, in my opinion, with the relinquishing of the belt treatment, it continues to make her look strong in that aspect. And then you can open up that championship to your two number one contenders, or go down that road somewhere where you can build up to a. And these are the next two that would have been in line, or the two that gave the best run against Mandy Rose. Now they're going to be up for that opportunity now that Mandy has relinquished and decided to go off to new ventures on either Raw or SmackDown.
Yeah, and I'm looking at just the history of the usage of Alba Fire in NXT. They've had her very well not be a part of the NXT Championship picture much, and I think that was by design. And I think she is being groomed in the sense of being that next person to take over in that position for the women's championship. And then when you mix in the fact that Toxic Attraction is not being used as a dominant tag team champion anymore, they had lost those titles, and now that they're around them, but they're not really targeted as favorites anymore to get them back. And I think that's because we're seeing with the examples of them wrestling the few matches on SmackDown that they also are being groomed for that run. Just like I know when WWE likes to play with the numbers of how long the reigns tend to get, you know that they're eventually coming to an end. That's usually something and a very telling point that they tend to do. And I think we will see probably Mandy get either close to the longest reign or get the longest reign before she loses. And I just think the next takeover, we're seeing a new champion. And I think by year's end, I think we see Toxic Attraction not only on the main roster, but feuding with other people. And I think if you want Mandy and Bianca, you can go there, and you can have Toxic Attraction either going up against potentially the coming back of Naomi and Sasha, or maybe you see Toxic Attraction even targeting Damage Control as a 3-on-3.
I mean, at the end of the day, what this really says about the company right now is they've got one of the finest women's divisions in all of professional wrestling at the moment, and that we can make these arguments about where people go and who they're going to face because they have a plethora of talent to utilize, and everybody wants to see them utilized in these ways.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think, aside from that, that's really all I've got written down for this week, guys. Like, I don't know if we throw it to the audience or if there's any particular topics you guys want to go on for a little bit. Floor is yours.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to give the audience a member. If you guys want us to talk about one last thing, please bring it out. And then as that's going on, throwback.
What do you guys think about? And when you guys were on the other thing, I asked you this too, so I wanted to give you an update. What do you guys think is this about the whole state of NXT right now? Considering I am one of those NXT guys out there besides Asterisk and Ed and stuff. I like the new logo, by the way.
Come on! I only have a show on Tuesdays called Taking Over. Let's go here. Include me in the NXT combo.
I know, but it's just. I like the fact that they're going back to the black and gold logo and keeping some of the original logo. But how would you categorize this? Would you categorize this as a reboot of a reboot? It's just, I think it's interesting that they're moving forward with this. I really am excited that they're keeping Bate in NXT right now. And that's a name that wouldn't be surprised it goes up eventually and faces Butch, aka Pete Dunne, in a main roster slot going against them. They're so good against, and I'm so excited for JD to actually face Bates this time.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it a reboot of a reboot, or maybe just the hammering out and fixing of the things that the fans really didn't care about or want to see. I think the switch to the the back to the black and gold and everything like that. Everybody was so fond of it. It's what drew people into NXT in the first place. And I think all they're really just doing is dropping the silliness and going back to what they did best before. I don't know if they're going to do a complete overhaul of the way the setup is or anything like that. It's a color scheme thing. It's a going back to what people believe thing, change the belts a little bit. I'd say a facelift more than a reboot of a reboot, personally.
Yeah, and I know going back from Triple H's interview, he did say eventually NXT there was that decision to make a change, regardless of him being getting sick or not, and having those health scares. He said there was a plan already in place to change the layout and the vision of NXT at that point anyway. So I think too, like, we just associate the 2.0 to Vince, and we don't really go the black and gold to Hunter, and I think that's fair. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we're going to see much platform change as we are more of a vision change, and I think it's just like Triple H said, it's his time now to indicate what flavor people like. He gets to choose the flavor of ice cream now. That was his quote, and I think too it's just putting his spin on things, and I think that's just it. He has a certain vision, he has a certain belief on something, and I think that's just what it is. Yeah, I think it's just more clean. I think we're going to see maybe a little bit more aggression and kind of more of that dark kind of like grunge out of NXT. But outside of that, I don't think we're going to see a lot of change. I think a lot of the pieces in place are going to remain. And I think there's going to be a lot more internal focus on it as well. And as you said, throwback, having Tyler Bate there, I think establishes that because he is an established star. And I do think we're going to see a lot of those European talents be looked very well, because I think this is going to be a catalyst to how NXT Europe starts off too.
Yeah. And I think with NXT Europe, I think you have to absolutely put the name of the UK as the man who started the UK as their champion at age 19 and ended the UK title as your first ever NXT European champion. And just to get that started off the ground, it would make sense. But having Bate there is the perfect thing for right now. And he said even on the vignette last week, he's not done with Breaker just yet. And the first thing I hope they change, like I said, and I've said it before selfishly, I've said it on Body Slam, I've said it on my stuff, and I've said it on here, is that they need to go back on the travel aspect of it at least once a month, or at least when they do that. Bring back the takeovers. Bring back the true takeovers. The ones
that is happening.
People
that is
remember.
Happening. Halloween Havoc has been now renamed NXT Takeover.
Yeah, but is it staying in the venue? It probably is.
For right now, it could be, but I do think too the whole travel thing again is still, it was still okay. Like that whole thing is still in effect from the COVID time. So like I think eventually you are right. They will get back to that. That is not just something you want. That is definitely something they plan on doing. I can guarantee that, because the one thing I know Triple H is a big proponent of is getting those talents over in other markets, as well as just internal one in the Florida range. From what I understand, there are plans in place to have NXT travel more. And I think too, that's also part of this facelift, as Bobby, you said it. Not only are they going to be, looked at differently, but they're also going to have a different feel. And I think the travel will be a part of that.
And the thing about it is that, like I said, selfishly, they'll be in Boston anyway. So I kind of I want Hayes to be the champion going into Boston and stuff like that, and actually doing something they don't do that often, let the champion win in their hometown. But it's time. If they're going to travel, and you're doing after the new year, and you're going to have the European brand already out and about, Cardiff is the perfect place for that to start kick off of it. It was the first place, I believe, that did the NXT championship for the UK. It would be the perfect place to actually kick it off after how crazy, Clash at the Castle was. Go back to Cardiff and take it over. and then do something special. You can name it, instead of, Takeover Cardiff, you can name it something about Takeover Wales or something like that. Takeover in London, and you do a Takeover Buckingham or something like that. Something crazy. But if you're going to do that, do it right. And I won't be shocked that we see a War Games in the main roster, and also, I'd see certain matches going into main roster. I even said it. Give me Riddle in a fight pit aspect against Seth Rollins or something like that. Just go something where you're using all these gimmick matches and stuff like that. But that's me. I believe a lot of stuff people don't. So.
Yeah, I mean, lots of great things coming up. I kind of find it funny that this many years later that we will actually see a new incarnation of the European Championship in WWE in some way, shape, or form, whether it is NXT or not. It is making its return after all these years.
Yeah, and I wish the hardcore title would come back, not the 24-hour. I'm talking about the Mick Foley, disheveled, winged eagle, taped up hardcore title. That would be great. In the European title for NXT, I hope it's modeled after the European title, the classic one, back in the late 90s. But I think if you throw a little flavor, I wouldn't be shocked if they look at ECW's titles and try to imagine like a hardcore version of that European title, the grittiness of it, because it's an entire continent. It's just not one, an island, as they say. So it's going to be fun to see all these talent. I want to see what happens.
Yeah, lots of things going on. I didn't see any questions coming in from the chat there, Parrish, so I don't know if we have anything else. Or...
No, Astrid, I think, which, by the way, always check her stuff out as she's covering everything women's wrestling. I believe has a show coming out quite soon. I'm not going to say anything because I don't know if I'm supposed to. So just follow her credentials, and then
I'm sure more than one, actually.
Well, I'm sure she's a workhorse. But I mean, yeah. But she did inquire about Raquel Rodriguez, formerly known as Raquel Gonzalez. And I think too, right now, we did see that. You can say it. Don't be silly. Astrid, if I'm not silly, who in the God's green earth am I? But with that being said, I do want to just follow on the Raquel Rodriguez topic, just as one, because we know that her and Aaliyah dropped the women's tag team titles to not Toxic Attraction, but Damage Control. Sorry. And then Aaliyah is also out now, and we're seeing now her kind of in another tag team. It looks like a formation with Shotzi. What are our thoughts about Raquel Rodriguez right now? And this can be our kind of, I think, our last topic here. But is she a victim of maybe being called up too quickly, or what do we see her future to be on the main roster? Because I don't know if necessarily sticking her in tag team after tag team after tag team is going to do a lot for her. What do you guys think? Throwback, I'll go to you first off and then end with you, Bobby.
Sure.
After seeing that match with Ronda and basically Ronda putting a pat on the back to her, she will be the SmackDown Women's Champion at some point. Not anytime soon. They're going to give her a little more time, but I have one thing that would be an interesting scenario is her boyfriend's back. And a lot of people don't know who her significant other is, and it's Braun Strowman. I wouldn't be shocked if they just have both of them run kind of parallel, where she becomes the monster among women, and he basically is the monster among men. So they basically are parallel to each other in aspect of that, but they basically break off at some point where they're going to do their own thing, but they break off into different sections where they both have their own titles and their different title programs. It would be an awesome to see something like a lot of people hinted when they were doing the whole Seth and Becky thing, that they had both of them working parallel to each other and doing separate programs. But this would be great to hint at not them as a couple on TV, just hint them as two people who mutually respect each other, and they basically are destroying the entire division on both sides, and then they're doing their own thing. But it would be a great idea to see, Braun and her go rickshaw in both divisions and basically sit there, kind of like the APA used to do when the tag team back in the day. They would literally go crazy on all the divisions, all the tag teams, and they just sit there and have a beer right afterwards. Bring something like that, but have both of them in that same, where they're just sitting back in a backstage looking at everybody and just starting a fight, and then going back, and there they are drinking a beer, or they're just sipping margaritas or something like that. Just something off the wall fun.
Yeah, I personally, I think Raquel is fantastic. I know you mentioned about her being a victim, being called up too early there, Parrish, but I mean, we were mentioning earlier about people going backwards. I mean, again, Raquel's one that maybe could go back to NXT for a little while too, to start dominating over there and building that up. But I also don't think she needs to. I think she has shown more than enough talent on the main roster already. I think that given a little bit of time to kind of reestablish herself, maybe even getting her in some squash matches against some talent that they bring in, just to, I don't want to use the word jobber, the enhancement talent. There we go. Bring in some enhancement talent and really let Raquel go on a run, start to dominate and really show that dominance that she brings to the ring, and then allow her to start, getting those victories over some of the women on the roster, eventually building herself back up to somebody that's ready to challenge for either the Raw or SmackDown Women's Championship, depending on the brand she is with after, the supposed draft that could be coming out next year. I don't think it's an immediate thing to put the belt on Raquel. I think you need to slow build, slow burn, and get her to that point, and then when the time is right, initiate it and have her as a dominant champion.
I like the idea that like I'm piggybacking a lot of the stuff that Bianca has said. She wants to be in a stable with Rhea and Raquel because of that icon. It's an iconic picture of all three women with all three titles, and that picture of them in NXT in the background. It would be great to have them as a faction too, go against Damage Control and just set something up. But they are doing their own thing right now, so with different aspects of it. Bianca being the Raw Women's Champion, Rhea being in Judgment Day, and Raquel they're trying to figure out what to do with Raquel. I would love to see that idea of all three of them coming together against the one common enemy and just going crazy against the division.
Yeah, I think just the one thing as a fan or whatever, we got to stop kind of like trying to manufacture in our head is just because a talent comes out and says they want something doesn't mean we have to rush to it and make it a thing right away. Like I hear this a lot, and I heard this even back going to the Gunther Sheamus match at Clash of Champions, that Sheamus has never won the Intercontinental Championship. He would like to have that for for his Grand Slam. And then everyone would get mad if he didn't win that match because, God forbid he didn't become a Grand Slam champion right away. Just people that need to be a little bit more patient on it. Yeah, because they want something doesn't mean they might get it, because we've seen examples of certain times where, a CM Punk wanted the main event to WrestleMania. At that time, a lot of people thought he should have been, but he wasn't, and they have to get over they have to understand that. Or it just might not happen right now, but it could happen in 2 to 3 years. So just patience is a virtue, but I think we just got to let things breathe a little bit more than we do just as fans.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. And speaking of patience as a virtue, I got to say we've got some very, very patient, virtuous people that followed us along on this first edition of Busting. Thank you to every single one of you that stuck around for the full. Look, we had an hour and 40 minutes, man. You guys are awesome. We can't do this stuff without the people that tune in week to week to the kind of stuff that we all do as creators. And thank you. I am absolutely gobsmacked by the amount of support that we've seen throughout this past week from everybody making all these shows possible that we've been putting together.
Yeah.
And it's fun for me as somebody to watch too, because it's like I follow you guys, like I said, every Sunday when you're doing your own thing on the other stuff. But I'm excited when I go back and stuff like that and be working on Sundays around this time, and I actually can sit and shoot the shit with you guys like I always do. And it's always great because you guys have always treated me with respect and dignity, and it's always been the same way too. I've had Parrish on so many times, I've lost count in how many times he said certain things he shouldn't be saying in a private chat too. So it's always fun to have good people around and talk about stuff. And
that's what this is all about, and all these shows have been about, is just being able to help it out people, friends, and people that we want to see get elevated at the same time. And I mean, it's been an absolute delight to have you on the show here. Throwback, a chance to be on here at least before, maybe your Sunday duties get you committed and you'll have to be tuning in and listening. So it was wonderful to be able to have you on the show and be able to get your opinions on the topic from this week.
It's all lies, Astrid. All lies. I say nothing. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, no, it is getting at that time in Throwback. Thank you once again for being a part not only of Bustin' Out, but the very first edition of Bustin' Out. And as I play your credentials here right now, tell us where people can find you and what you have going on right now.
As much as this guy over here covers NXT on Tuesday nights, come check out the real post show out there. NXT post show by bodyslam.net. Me and Jameis actually cover NXT. Very soon we're going to be trying to figure certain things out, but we cover it every Tuesday night right after NXT. And then it's been off and on with Wicked Crazy Pinfalls just because with, doing certain things, but we do it every Thursday night, 8 o'clock and stuff. Sometimes down the line, we might do some gaming stuff here and there on a Thursday night, just to kill some time and everything. But, we're just having so much fun, but we have a undisputed, and I have to give him a shout out on this, the reigning defending podcast champion of all podcasts, the Wicked Crazy Pinfalls champion, Drew Nicholas, is going to be defending his championship very soon because we've been neglecting on that against Anakin JMT. So check out who's going to win that match. We're probably going to do something with that. And then after that, and I'm proud to announce on here, his next opponent after whoever wins the championship between the two, Parrish, was in a thing for Money in the Bank and everybody tied. Parrish will be after that next in line for that title. So we are going to get, and if Drew wins, the ultimate match that everybody wanted in the tournament, Chris Parrish versus Drew Nicholas.
So the subcontinental champion is in line to maybe take another belt over to his side.
Give me your belt.
Pretty much, yeah.
My best McGregor. Yes, I will finally get one.
Yeah, and eventually what will happen is that down the line, probably in a year or two, we'll be making a new one, a new title, and doing another tournament style. But it's going to be in-house tournament this time. It's going to be Parrish will be having an opportunity out of it being on there. Bobby will be on there just because Bobby is always welcome to come on and stuff like that. And just have fun with it. But Asterisk, Ed, and stuff like that, people who have been on or the mainstays on there. So Parrish has been on mainstay. I counted how many shows on he did recently. He's been on about 40 out of the 155 shows we've done in 2 years.
Yeah, well, you can find Chris Parrish all over the place these days. You can also find me. I'll give my little bit here as you look at the bottom there, places that you can find me. You can still find me on Thursday nights. Again, we had an awesome Thursday night the other night, talking all about MLW, doing Ring Respect Radio Live with Papa Smokes. You're going to be able to join myself and Papa Smokes. We'll be on actually about an hour earlier than we were just this last Thursday because we have a very special guest, and we want to make sure that he gets to get on there before bedtime, at least anyway. We're going to be joined by MLW's Lance Anawai this Thursday. So definitely, if you guys want to get in on the conversation and get your questions in for Lance Anawai, join us on Thursday night for that wonderful show. And again, I will be back again next Sunday right here with that gentleman right to the side of me there, Chris Parrish, my brunch buster brother, as we do more episodes of Busting Out right here on these channels.
Yeah, and you can follow me on my credentials here at Chris Parrish on the Twitter, at Chris.Parrish on the Instagram, and at the Chris Parrish like you are right now on the Twitch, where, yes, I am no longer the non-continental champion. I am the current sub-continental champion, because on my Twitch, you'll find some content. I posted no content now. As confirmation, I am allowed to say you can follow Astrid on her Ladies Wrestling Showcase now, which you can find it on all her platforms, but also on Spotify. So make sure you're checking that out. And as well as if she is going to admit it in the chat, you can also follow me on Tuesdays back on my Twitch, on my Facebook, and I'll my Twitter with the second edition of Taking Over, which is going to be Tuesdays at, say, about, let's go with 10 o'clock Eastern. Actually, you know what? 10:10 Eastern, because I like to be different and difficult. So let's do that. But I again, we cannot do this show without everyone in the viewers tuning in, taking their time over an hour and 40 minutes. We thank you so much for your patience. We thank you so much for your support. That is what we're all about here at Bustin' Out, and it's all about who we are over at say our local establishment that we have. It's a friend zone like no other, and I very much appreciate every single one
like that one
coming
right
in. Exactly. So yeah, thank you so much for everyone, and we just want to say have a great rest of your day. Be safe, have fun, support everyone, and make sure you say who dat.
Ole!
Ole as well, yes. And Carl, we need that sound clip still, by the way. You're being called out. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
You can feel the root shaking as you're running out of breath. If you're ready to rock, we'll just let it fall. Are you ready now? Are you ready to move? Let's just move.